Wow, not quite as dumb as I thought it was, almost.
All right, you're good to go.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, am I on mute? Let me see. Nope. All right, welcome everyone. This is class number 5. We have Rowdy missing tonight. He will not be there. Wait a minute, somebody's checking in. Okay. Let me see, participant. Wait a minute, there we go. Hi, Carrie. We're just getting started. Last week's class is not recorded yet because our technology people have been in a whole bunch of training and a whole bunch of new programs, and our hallways full, you can't believe, full of tech people out there. So after class tomorrow, tonight, after class tomorrow, we will record last week's class and tonight's class. So if you've missed one, you can go back and record it, watch it. So that's why it wasn't there. The rest of them are on the bottom of the canvas. Any questions, concerns tonight as we get started? I don't know how many of you are in a snowstorm. About an hour ago, I thought it was a blizzard, and now it's gone. Now it's nice out there. So, Corinne, there you go.
Oh, it just had ominous clouds all day, but it hasn't hit us yet. But yeah, it's bound to soon.
All right. Is there anyone now that cannot see the agenda? I think I figured out how to put Canvas up and also put Zoom up at the same time. Is there anyone that cannot see Canvas? Okay, wonderful. Tonight is our next to the last class. Remember, red means it's a strategy. Green means it's a handout. Blue is the reports we're going to do tonight. And then P is any purple or personal things. Quite a few of you, in fact, 8 of you asked, you're not elementary teachers. And so you've asked me to put the answers back up to that quiz we took back in class number 2. Some of you did not know this information, mostly high school, and they're not expected to know that. So that's all that is, this first part right here. A few of you asked for the answers, and here they are, of what some of those terms mean. So that's the reason that's there. Any questions on those? Any questions or anything you want to share from last week? All right. Then last week, we finished a little early. We finished about core day. Oh, just a minute, somebody's checking in. Let me see, participant is in the waiting room. Okay, there we go. So if there's no questions or concerns, anyone have anything they want to share from their schools, anything that's going on in your life, you want to share for a minute? Okay, last week we did not quite get to all these handouts. A lot of you have made the comment that you are enjoying people giving you the highlights because you are so busy, you can't take time to read every agenda all the time. So first of all, Corinne, are you there? Corinne, are you there?
I am, I'm here.
In your responses, you wrote something I really liked. You said the big kids like to move around as much as little kids. Can you explain what you were writing about? I thought that was a good comment.
Oh, I've just been noticing that, so I teach preschool in my home, but in church, I work with the youth, and they love being in the preschool room, and they love it when I just like do preschool things with them. They love to move, they love to paint, they love to, and they just love to move and be kids, because that's what they are. They're kids.
And even if we're doing teacher workshops or cooperative learning with teachers or all these meetings, don't forget we all kind of like to move around a little.
Yeah, yes, exactly. That's why we're teachers. We want to be kids. We want to move and paint and get messy and have fun.
And maybe they miss that. Remember, we talked about we all go through these stages. And we've had parents that say, I never let my kids have scissors. They might cut their hair or they might cut my furniture. They've never had a pair of scissors or painted. They have never had these experiences. And it must not just be us, because SUU, who sponsors all these classes, sent out a big notice to everybody this week. There are 4 things that teachers are supposed to do. First of all, talk to the camera. Second, take a break. Third, explain what you're doing. And 4, slow down. So it's not just us, it must be on every college campus. Everybody's trying to use Zoom and it's difficult. Thank you for sharing that. Stacy, are you there? Stacy,
Yes, I'm here.
you made some comment comparing iPods with books. Tell us what you were thinking about when you wrote in your responses.
Well, I hate to see this. Well, and here, I'll show you. So here's my little book order that I sent home
Mhm.
to this kid. I used to get over $100 every book order. Moms buying books for their kids. And this time I had $9 met. And it's because they say, well, we can let them read on the iPad. We can do this on the iPad and stuff. And I'm like, you know what? There's just nothing like sitting on your mom's lap with a book and turning the pages, how they smell, the pictures, you can go back and look, you know, it's invaluable. And I'm just worried that we're getting so much away from that. In fact, this year, every year I say, for Christmas, don't bring the friends' presents in your class. Wrap up a book and we will open it up and read it to the class and then send it back home. And that way you've shared something you love with the class and you don't need to buy them anything. And so many times the kids say, we don't have a book at home.
Wow.
You know, and it just breaks my heart. I just hope that that we teach the parents the value of hard books.
Yep.
You know.
I belong to a book club out here. It's called the Altars Book Club, and it's been going for over 100 years. And no, I haven't been a member the whole 100 years before you ask. But anyway, for the last 20 years, we take our dues and buy books, and we take them to the hospital, and we give them to all the moms of the newborns. They go home,
Yes.
2 or 3 books,
Mm-hmm.
hoping they get the idea that.
That it needs to happen. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
And interesting,
Go ahead.
Louise.
Go ahead.
I have given books out at the beginning of school every year for several years now. Several books. I go through my books and I weed out any that I have duplicates of, things like that. And I give books away to the kids every beginning of the year. And still, clear throughout the year, I have kids. Well, I don't have any books.
Mhm.
I don't have any at home. I'm like, what happened to all those books I gave you?
I
And
always
they, oh, so and so ripped them, so mom threw them away. Like, oh,
give all my
books are something to treasure to me.
they
But-
didn't realize that. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. All my grandkids know, no matter how old they are, they're going to get a book for Christmas, and I'm going to ask them later what it said, what they thought about it. So they're accountable. Maria, are you there yet? Maria? Maybe Maria? I thought she checked in. She uses music and song a lot, and she teaches the ESL. So I've been waiting for Maria to check in. Trish, are you there?
Maria is here. Sorry, I was moving the computer.
Okay, Maria, tell us how you use music so much in your class.
I don't.
Well,
I don't use music.
I thought you wrote that in your, maybe it was Marie that wrote it in. I thought it was Maria that wrote how you use music and songs in your teaching. Sorry,
Not in my ESL class, I don't.
okay, I'll go
I
back.
can.
Yeah, you said it. They'd love it. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trish, are you there?
I am.
Tell us about using cohort and all those things that you like.
Oh, Kahoot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a game that you can play. It's an interactive game that you can play on their phones. And getting high school kids to put their phones away is kind of hard. So this game, they can actually have their phones out. But you make up these games on a interactive format, and they dial in a code and they answer the questions on their phones, and it's the whole class can play. And it's basically like you can do drill and practice, you can do vocabulary, you can do multiple choice questions and things like that. And they really like it. They get kind of competitive, and it comes with music, and they get into it.
Yeah, I've been using it in some of my classes where the teacher, that way I can see, compete about, what do we learned, what we did tonight. And yeah, I like that. you also have some special ed insights. You want to tell us about those?
Well, I teach high school special education. So as insights as far as what strategies or?
Some good ideas, huh? You had some good ideas on your post about how working with special ed children.
You have to go with the individual needs of the kids, the goals that they're working on for their wherever their gaps in learning are. You have to accommodate everything. You have to modify assignments, extra time. Sometimes they need that one-on-one help from an aide or a teacher or things like that. Just basically catering to what their individual learning need is.
Right. I have 3 demonstration teachers right now from WGU. They're all in the high school. They're all elementary teachers, but they want to move up into do special ed in the high school. And it's amazing what some of the games and they bring to get their interest, to keep them all on task. Thank you. Let's see. Jennifer Jenkins, are you there?
I'm here.
You were wondering about ability grouping. This is a, isn't it? Right. Tell us what you,
Right.
what you think.
Well, it's just, you know, in my groups, I find I tend to ability group because, you know, I'm looking at a way to do interventions for them. And I, you know, I've tried non-ability grouping before, and I think it's good. You know, they say it's supposed to bring the lower kids up by being grouped with more able peers, you know, but I always find myself going back to that ability grouping, even though there's research too that says you really need to group differently than that.
There is. It's a big controversy right now, whether you should or shouldn't. There's some research that just came out about 5 years ago where they took some students that were very low performing students and told the teacher that they were probably some of the higher students that they had in their classes. And they were treated that way and more or less lived up to it. I mean, they weren't still the straight A's, but the progress they made because the teacher believed that they were really capable, making them believe they were really capable. And sometimes if we have different ability groups in our groups, we rise and help each other. And so, I mean, it is very controversial. Anybody else want to talk about ability grouping for or against? Seems like everybody knows who the bluebirds are or the blackbirds or whatever you call them. And we talked about that effective fielder. My teacher thinks I'm really smart. I'm in the sunbeam group or something. I mean, you know, our perceptions. So nobody has decided yet what's the best thing to do, but it is. Okay, Tony, are you there?
I'm here.
Comment where you said you went back and surveyed your room. What did you find out about this classroom?
I found out that most of my kids enjoyed reading. I had one that said he hated it. It was the worst thing in the world. So my goal for the rest of the year was to find ways for him to not hate reading as much, but the rest of my class enjoyed it.
Where are you right now?
I am multitasking at a basketball game and doing class.
Anybody else have something they'd like to say on? I read all your posts. I love Beth's comment. Beth, are you there?
I am.
I loved your comment, how you like reading other people's strategies. It's more important than what I'm saying. That's very true. Very true, because you're the expert. You got the boots on the ground right now. Tell us about what you enjoy about how you read other people's posts.
I just really have felt, you know, I'm not a trained teacher. I went to school for plants. So my degrees are in plant science, and I've been teaching now several years, but I'll tell you what, the most I have learned is from watching other teachers and from talking to other teachers. They are amazing and they know so much. So I just really enjoy reading all of the wonderful thoughts, and it inspires me.
I love their new ideas and the way they try different things, and not everything works. Some of them are completely honest. I blew that one. It didn't work at all. But that's how we learn.
But that helps too.
It does. We all blow it. Like this Zoom thing. I'd like to blow it. No, I'm not. Be positive. Be positive. I tell myself, be positive. Anybody else want to talk about it? I think your posts are really worthwhile. That's why I thought it was so much more important to do that than give you a quiz, give you a test, and have you write a report, and have you do PowerPoints. And I mean, they all have their place, right? But I wish we were in the same class and we could just really discuss things. So I hope this is the best we can do right now. The pandemic seems to be going down a little, doesn't it, in Utah? Our numbers are getting fewer and fewer, and now they're asking us not to meet for Super Bowl so that we won't keep spreading it. So I'm very hopeful that maybe we can get back to normal things, whatever normal is. Any other questions or comments anybody wants to make? Okay, let's look at our agenda. Last week, some people did not get to talk about their little articles, and I'd like to have Shanda talk about explaining phonics. Beth will talk about joy in reading. Jenny Jenkins about literacy strategies. Stacy about some principles of middle school. And Marie's going to talk to us about brainwave and reading. Now, do you need some time, Shanda, or were you already prepared from last week?
I'm ready.
Go ahead then, please.
All right, so the article that I was assigned was explaining phonics instruction. And so I just kind of picked out, there were some terms that they discussed throughout the article that I felt like were probably the most important to look at. And so the first one was phonological awareness, and how important it is in language to acquire phonics before instruction begins. So this is just knowing, having the ability to separate oral language into syllables and individual phonemes, distinctive sounds. And this is where we've talked about I know in this class, and I think in others too, where we've talked about, they learn this through singing, tapping, syllables, rhyming, dividing words into individual sounds. And I think it was in our last class, they talked about students not being able to, like they didn't know nursery rhymes. And so they were working with them on that so that they could gain some of that awareness. And let's see, the next thing was concepts of print, learning the purpose of writing and illustration. So understanding what an author is, identifying text features, including the front and back of a book, uppercase and lowercase letters, reading top to bottom, reading left to right, and return sweep at the end of a line, and the meaning of punctuation. And I think what we were just talking about with students actually having physical books is one of those things that they need to be able to see that for concepts of print. There was also concept of word and text, point accurately to words as they recite the text. This helps them to develop in parallel structure with students' phonics knowledge of letter sound correspondence. Then they talk about kind of the steps and how it's taught. So knowing the letter names is the first step in phonics instruction, and is associated with later access and reading. When students understand that letters represent sounds and have mastered several letter sounds correspondences, they have acquired the alphabetic principle. And it talked about English orthography in here as well, which is just the way that we build when we're learning English. So they talk about the alphabetic layer in which basic letter sound correspondence are learned, the pattern layer where students examine consonant vowel patterns, and then finally the meaning and morphological layer where students learn new vocabulary and make generalizations. They talk a lot about steps and layers in this article for students becoming aware first of letter sounds, then that those sounds can be blended. They talk about the two approaches, which are analytical and synthetic. Analytical instruction, students compare words to identify patterns. So they would compare something like ran and can to see how those words are similar. And then there's synthetic phonics, where students blend individual letter sounds together to form words. They also talked about word study and how it's multisensory. So this is things like tracing letters, tapping sounds out in a word. But it says that research literature, however, does not indicate that multisensory program is required for all students to learn phonics. It can just sometimes be a helpful strategy. And then the end of the article talked about phonics instruction with English learners. And so one of the things they pointed out that's important for teachers that are teaching students who are learning English is that they try to find correlations between letter sounds in their native language and native sounds and then those sounds in English. And then also contrasting. So for instance, in Spanish, they don't necessarily have, the H sound in Spanish is silent. So giving them that contrast and showing them the difference in the two can be helpful. So it just talked about teachers educating themselves on what the similarities and differences in those languages are.
Thank you. Thank you. That's why some of you asked me to put those answers to that little quiz we had. Because some of you don't know that yet. I mean, you're not expected to. You're in your field or something. And so phonics is important, and it's doing it different ways. Did anybody read the article I put on last week? Germany is going to structured spelling. Remember I told you? Wait a minute, somebody wants to check in. Just a second. Let me check in. Lexi and Samantha just checked in. Okay, so that one on structured spelling is a new way, and Germany is adopting that, and now they're going to word structure. So instead of saying hop, 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 cop, top, there's hop and hopping and hops, and there's different ways of doing it. So I don't know if that'll come here to America or not, but they're really looking at structured spelling and structured words. So there's different ways of doing that. Kate, are you there? Kate and Beth and Duchesne and Ginger?
I'm here.
I'm here.
Do you do the letters training? Have you had letters? LETRS?
We are starting it, yes.
Tell them,
Ooh, first week.
tell them about that, please, and what you know.
We're just starting. It's going to take us a while.
UNA district has adopted it, and they really like this program called Letters, LETRS. That, letters is spelled differently, but that's the way they spell the program, LETRS. Anytime you have a minute, type it in. It's a new way to teach the phonics, and people are saying it's being fantastic. So look it up and see if you agree with it. Okay, next in, Beth, what about joy in reading?
Okay, so, last week, my article was pretty short. And so I actually just Googled it and I went to the site. And guess what? The site isn't there this week. Oops, page not found now. So they removed it. But it was interesting. It was about, so evidently it is a program for middle school. But the interesting part for me was their goal. Their goal is that students will experience joy in reading. Isn't that all of our goal? We want kids to love it, to enjoy it. And then their last little line on the article that you put on was, how can we guide them to find and develop their passion for reading and help them discover just the right text that might begin their reading journey? I thought, that's what I need to ask myself too for each one of my little kiddos. How can I guide them to find and develop their passion for reading and help them find the text that will help? So I don't know. I took it as a challenge. I need to work on it again still.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Jenny Jenkins. Tell us about the literacy strategies. There are 20 of them listed. Just kind of give us a highlight, please.
Okay, in this article, it really talked about the object of a learning experience is not necessarily to see how many learning strategies you can use, but pick what's best for the situation. And it goes through 20 of them. It talked about how discussion enhances comprehension. You can incorporate drawing and artwork to ascertain students' attention to detail. Talked about field trips and how when you travel somewhere that your brain remembers those experiences. And incorporating games is another strategy to help you review concepts. It talked about graphic organizers, semantic maps, word webs, just to help teach comprehension skills. It even talked about incorporating humor. And I thought this was funny because it talked about Jim Carrey, actually. They were talking about having someone be the class clown, and to help him participate in class and complete his work, his teachers would give him a minute at the end of class to tell a joke. And so that's kind of where he got his beginning. So to incorporate humor. It talked about how we can use manipulatives and models and things like that to integrate literacy across the curriculum. We can incorporate metaphors, analogies, and similes because when you compare two or more dissimilar things, then it really, is using some brain work there. Another strategy is mnemonic devices to help you remember content, and incorporating movement, synthesizing a concept by turning it into a song or a rap or a rhyme, something like that. You can use project-based learning and reciprocal teaching. Those, help with real life skills that kids need to. And you can role play and drama and storytell to help kids to remember things, and use technology, guided imagery, and lots of visuals. It said that 50% of our students will be predominantly visual learners, so that will help them learn. And using on-the-job training like work study, and using journals and writing to help them remember the content.
Well, remember the learning pyramid we talked about last week? You remember 5% of what you just hear, 90% of what you do, teach, and visually, all these skills, all these multiple intelligences. Thank you. Stacy, 4 principles of middle school.
Okay, this one, like I said in my discussion earlier, it was really interesting to me because I do have a middle schooler right now. And, he's 6th grade, so they're transitioning from the elementary teacher knows everything to this new way of learning where the teacher's there to support learning and encouraging them to kind of come to more of a self-motivated learning. So this article talked about, the new brain things, that brain development and emotions and relationships that these middle schoolers are going through, and how to kind of channel the teaching towards them. And it really did have some good ideas. So first it says is you want to deliver the deep engagement that leads to deep learning, so that you're not just having them go through like I used to do. And
We lost you, Jenny. No, Stacy. Stacy, we lost you. Stacy, we lost Stacy. Did we lose everybody? Beth, are you there?
I'm still here.
So for
I
some,
can hear you too.
yeah, okay. For some reason we lost Stacy. Can anybody else hear Stacy? I can't. Okay, we'll have to just wait and see what happened to her system. Okay, somebody wants to check back in. Let's see if it's Stacy. Nope, it wasn't. Let's go on a minute then. Marie, tell us about, oh, wait a minute. Here she comes. Here she comes. Here comes Stacy. Are you back, Stacy? Are you back? There you are. We lost you.
I'm so sorry. Are you there? My
Yes.
computer went to sleep. It just went to sleep.
We're here. Finish up.
I'm so sorry.
We've been
So-
calling for you.
I don't know why it did that. I'm at school and I think they just click off at a certain time. So I had to get back on. Okay, so anyway, we're engaging middle schoolers right here.
Yes.
So the first principle is to empower students to become critical thinkers and to know what they're doing matters, that it's, real, and that it will be recognized and relevant to their lives. They don't want to do busy work. They need lots of opportunities to develop, communicate, and refine their ideas in light of new observations. So they gave the engagement principles that they we're discussing there. And they said, first, be clear that the text, not the teacher, has the answers. So when they come to you and say, I don't know this, I don't know that, you ask them open-ended questions like, how did you get that response? Might change if you had a different point of view, things like that, that will make them think. So it's not, here's the question, here's the answer, that it's not right. If you can defend it, if you can justify your answer, you're right, and that is a new thing for kids to learn in middle school. It's not what they're used to. And I actually did a little study on this summer. It suggests to do the Socratic seminar where you sit everybody in a circle and you ask open-ended questions, and the teacher's more of a facilitator of the conversation rather than delivering knowledge, that the children are discussing and defining their responses. And then I love this one because I feel this one is neglected a lot, is provide opportunities and supports for all students to work up. And they had a phrase in here that I loved. It said, low floors, high ceilings. So that no matter what level your child is at, they have the right opportunities and the scaffolding to engage in a rigorous curriculum that can bring them even higher. So you got to think when you're planning your instruction, what questions, what things can we do to help even the higher students get higher? And of course, it says incorporate multimedia, which the kids love and they know how to do. You still need to give them sentence frames and modified prompts, so they still are learning those complex writing and speech skills. You don't want to ignore that. And then give them support feedback systems that develop their strength. You want to, when you give them feedback, you want to make them not feel attacked or that they're wrong, that you're just guiding them in a different direction. Kind of like it said in the Socratic conversation, you're facilitating. You're not, here, you did this wrong, here's the answer. So, and then it said, and this one I know they would love, it says you need to engage multi-modalities with particular attention to collaboration where they're working together, because that's where they're at. They want to be, they're social beings. They want to work together. So it says you can do things like invite drama. And this one I know they would love. Create debates where they could argue their opinions and why they said what they did. Kids love that. And to do it in a non-threatening way, the debate. So yeah. And encourage performance. So challenge the students to perform, to act out, to do things in different modalities to share what they learned. So I thought that was some really good ideas to use for engaging your middle schooler.
Well, let us know how it works on yours.
Okay, I will.
When you get Mother of the Year.
Yeah, right.
All right, Marie. What about brain waves? I thought this was interesting.
So this article talked about that the focus on letter sounds and phonics actually increases activity in the brain that's wired differently, more for like your reading. So the article is based on whole words versus the phonics approach. Sounding out the sounds of words like k, at, it actually helps create more brain circuits versus memorizing. And so then the research led to, this research can lead to helping guide teachers with a better intervention versus the whole word approach. But the article did go on to kind of go back and forth between the two, because one approach is more of your left side of the brain. So when you are sounding out the sounds, you're working on the visuals. So you're connecting the letter sounds to the letters. And that's more of the left side of the brain, where your whole word and the memorizing would be the right side. So the article did talk a bit about older students. You can see how they have worked on certain what their strengths are and stuff. And then it said, we found that participants could learn to read under both forms of instruction, but the brain activation showed that learning happened in very different ways. So both approaches are helpful, but it does depend on the learner, the visual versus not.
It does. That's a very good article. Very good article. Okay, last week we talked about Bloom. Tonight we're going to talk about Kagan just a little bit. The articles that they just gave you are all posted on Canvas, both last week and this week, so you can go back and find some more about them. Thank you for doing that. If you'll go down to your Canvas, please, go to number 7 right here, Kagan. No, let's go to number 24. Right under brainwaves, it's Kagan strategies. He agrees with Bloom in some ways, and some ways he doesn't. So I'm bringing it up now. He has 15 thinking skills. Take a second and look at that handout of what he does compared to what Bloom did last week. Remember, Bloom had the 6 that we talked about. He goes into a little bit more of them. Does anybody out there use Kagan? There's his book. His book is called Kagan Strategies for Thinking Skills. A lot of you have asked me to,
Louise,
excuse me, go ahead.
Louise, this is Kate. I have a lot of Kagan stuff, and I continue to use those strategies because they're easy to figure out. So that a lot of the kinds of things were abbreviated in cards, and you could buy them in a book, and the kids could see it. So I could make little cards and distribute them to the kids, and the kids could see it. So it was easy for me to teach using those methods. And so I have a whole bunch of them, and I'm amazed still that I continue to use them like that. I really liked the ease of use, and I felt like that the kids learned a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Anybody else want to talk about it? I think they're easy to use too, and there's a great big long handout here. I'm not going to read it all to you, but it gives you lots of ideas of how to use brainstorming, how to use carousel feedback, how to use corners. So a lot of you mentioned corners in your strategies this week that you were trying them. Fan and pick. It's just a handout here with lots of ideas that maybe you hadn't heard of, or maybe you haven't heard of. So that's one handout about Kagan. The next one right underneath that is another one about Kagan. Let me go to this and show you so you know where I'm at. Let me bring this up. The next one is called Kagan Strategy number 7 right here. So try that one. Look them over for a minute and see what you think of them. He agrees with Bloom a lot. He's just a little more in depth than Bloom. So he has a lot of ideas, and some of them may help you or may not help you. Then the one that's underneath that one is multiple intelligences, say it correctly. And a lot of you have been talking about that. At one time, this was the big theory that was going to solve the world. And some people agree with it now and some don't. He started out with 5, he's up to 7, and then he's up to 9. They're warning you though, not to pigeonhole a child. For example, are you always a verbal linguistic? Do you never do anything else? You can't, you can go back and forth. You can have multiple intelligences yourself. Look and see the requirements to be a visual, a logical, mathematical, a visual, spatial one, body, kinesthetic, musical, that's my weakest one, interpersonal and intrapersonal. I like this one a lot because of metacognition, thinking strategies, mindfulness. This kind of describes me. silent reflection, that higher order reasoning. I think I would fit in that one if I had been tested. And then it gives you some ideas that to use on each one of these. So it's just a handout for you probably already heard about them, but just a handout to show on logical, mathematical, visual, some things that you might do. Anybody want to talk to us about using multiple intelligences? Just don't pigeonhole a child and say, oh, that child's a visual. They'll never be analytical. They may be in some things, and musical and other things. So don't pigeonhole them, but look and see. Look at each child attentively and see what their strengths are. Look at your own strengths. I told you musical is my weakest one. I can't sing. I wish I could. I really enjoy people when they do sing, but that's just not my strength. Okay, then also you'll find some handouts there called Literacy Strategies for Engaging the Middle Brain and the Organization of Brain and the Working Memory, number 26. So let's look at number 26 just so that you're aware of it. Then when you have the time, that's this thing we never have, isn't it? Let's see what that one has. Let me go to Canvas and go down. Okay, get over here. Okay, let me show you a picture of Howard Gardner. There's some of you have heard of him and some of you had not. So I put on just a little PowerPoint here that you can look at. He really believes an intelligence is the ability to solve problems or to create problems. Back in 1983 is when he developed this theory based on IQ testing. The Army started the IQ testing, and they wanted to actually, this is their terminology, get the dummies out of the service. They called them the dummies and the smarties. So they started the IQ testing, but Howard viewed intelligences as just the capacity to solve problems or to fashion products that are valued in one or more cultural settings. I thought that was interesting. He was looking at that and tells about his history so that you know that he's credible. And then it talks about how he defined them. He has 9 of them listed now. He's also working on one, something to do with religion or faith, or he doesn't know what to call it. Somehow, do we believe in a higher power or don't we? Or does everyone? But he's added naturalist and he's added existentialist. So those are different. If you don't know about those, it might be interesting. And then he says that our schools and our culture focus most on linguistic and logical mathematical. We esteem the highly articulate or logical people. However, Dr. Gardner said we should also place equal attention on individuals who show gifts in the other intelligences. And he talks about the learning disabled and the attention deficit, the underachievers, the unique ways of thinking that aren't addressed by a heavily linguistic or logical mathematical classroom. He now states he has problems with his theory. So how nice that he puts it out there for us and then says it's not perfect. We're all working to this together. So when you have time, I think you'll find it very interesting. What does he think about learning styles? What does he think about one-on-one? What does he think about individualizing your teacher? Dropping the word styles. What does he think about strategy shares? What does he think about some of these things? So I put that on for you when you have the time to do those things. Has anybody studied Kagan or Howard Gardner, or you use any of these you want to tell us about in your classroom? Consider them because they are useful. And we look at children in different ways, don't we? Okay, we're going to do an activity now to see if you're a good thinker. Are you ready to think? You got your thinking cap on? A lot of people tell us things, don't they? They tell us facts. All day long, you hear facts and you think, is that really a fact? Is that really a fact, or is that somebody's opinion? When you watch the news, when you read the newspaper, when you read a book, is it fact or is it opinion? This is very hard for middle schoolers to think about sometimes, because they're so used to, in grades K through 6, the teacher is the authority, or the principal is the boss, or my dad is the boss, and just accepting whatever they're told. And then all of a sudden now they're asked to think about it, to give their opinion. And they think, we've never dared give our opinion before. You know, we've always said, no, this is the way we do things. This is why we do these things. So they're not used to doing fact and opinion. I'm going to give you some questions. If we were in the same room, it'd be very interesting to see what people think about these things. The statement that I tell you, if it's a fact, put up a closed fist. I wish we could see you all. Put up a closed fist. This is a fact. If you think it's an opinion, then put open, open palm. Opinion starts with O, open starts with. So you're going to put up a fist if you think it's a fact, and an open palm if it's an opinion. Okay, today is Wednesday. Show me, is that a fact or is that an opinion? How do you prove that? Is there a way to prove that? Well, yes, we have what? Then you can think of ideas. Calendar, somebody told me, I heard it on the news. What do you do to prove that fact? Easy thing to do in your room of thinking skills. Today, lunch is chili. And they need to put up in your house. Somebody's got a mic on. It says good chili. And then it might be a good chili fact, or it might be a good chili opinion. Okay, here's number 2 question. It is cold outdoors. That's a fact at my house, but maybe you're in St. George right now and it's not. So can that lead to a very good discussion of what is cold? Question number 3. Vegetables are very good for you to eat. Fact or an opinion? And then you can look at, what do you base that on? Well, the doctor told me, I read an article. It leads to a discussion, a simple thing like that. That's an opinion. Some kid will say, I hate vegetables. Why do you hate vegetables? Because they're gooey, or because they're, then it leads to an open discussion. Next one. Ice cream tastes good. I hate ice cream. See, we have a different opinion. We have something to talk about. Why? Why do you think? And open a simple thing like that didn't cost any money, didn't take any time, but it leads to thinking skills. Number 5, Joe Biden is our new president. How do you prove that? Well, there's many, many ways, and then they can go into, how do I actually prove that? Number 6, stay out of politics. We don't want to, good or bad things here, value. Number 6, you must drink 6 glasses of water every day. I'm going to say fact.
Mic is on.
And of course, my doctor is my authority. See, now I'm defending myself, and they have a chance to defend themselves. Maybe they've never been asked their opinion before. They just go to this certain doctor, but my doctor said I must drink 6 glasses of water. Simple question leads to open discussion. Number 7, watching TV is fun. Most people say yes. I don't particularly like TV. I'd rather read a book. So I'd say that's my opinion. Okay. Number 8, this class is very interesting. Get your See your fifth. Open discussion. Number 9, I will earn an A grade. Get your fists up there. You're going to earn an A grade. Number 10, all teachers are wonderful. I think they are, but simple questions can do fact and opinion. Now, I'm going to show you a picture. Children through the day have many things that they see. This is an ad that you might find in any magazine or on the TV. In 1950, way back then, Does anybody remember the Marlboro Man? Nobody? In 1950, a company of advertising man decided, if I'm going to sell something, I want a good looking, strong cowboy, hat, boots, buckle, muscles, put him next to this car. I'm not going to say as a fact that that Marlboro Man drives that car or that he smokes Marlboro. I won't say any of those words. That way I'm not liable, but the impression of this gorgeous hunk of man, and you can't believe the sale of Marlboros. Shoo! And then the car he was leaning against, it sold out. So they thought, oh, there's something to this. Fact and opinion. Is that a fact that if I drive a car like that, or if I smoke a cigarette like that, I'll look like that man? To people's minds, it was the most effective ad that has ever been made, because smoking went way up and cars went way up. So he thought, oh, I can do this. And then they decided that we can use that to sell anything. Now, this is a picture of a beautiful lady. She has beautiful eyes and features and hair and so forth. And at the bottom of it are some simple statements. The child just simply has to read and say, oh, fact or opinion. Let me read you a statement and you do fact or opinion. Get younger looking hair. Can you do that? Maybe, but at least it opens up a discussion. You can hide all the flaws and look more beautiful if you use plush. They're trying to convince you that's a fact. And most people accept it. Oh yeah, I buy some makeup kind because that's the best kind, because so-and-so said so, or actresses wear that. We are so influenced by fact and opinion, all of us. And children don't realize that. Okay, here's the next thing. Plush is 5% Hold'em. Well, that's something I can prove. They can look at that ad. I could actually buy a bottle of plush. I could measure it and see if it had this Hold'em stuff in it, the sticky stuff. You can prove that. It's also the best Hold'em out there. Well, now that's an opinion, but children can say, oh no, that is the best. It gives an open discussion. You'll feel like $1 million after one treatment. Obvious opinion, but not obvious to students. The blue and white bottle is in the cosmetics section of the store. Well, that's a fact. I can prove that. So using just a simple ad, there are some facts in there and some opinion, and it's a very effective ad. So children need to realize that, because they're going to be tempted to buy all these things. Also, another one that's wonderful, just get you a Norman Rockwell calendar. He was the perfect example of fact and opinion, or what's happening. Here is a policeman sitting at a soda counter, and a little boy sitting next to him. And at the bottom is a little suitcase or a handkerchief on a stick. What's happening in this picture? Is it a fact that he's running away from home? Is it a fact that the policeman's helping him, or is the policeman going to arrest him? Simple picture, especially Norman Rockwell. You can lead to so much discussion. Here's another one that would lead to a discussion. Here is a man having his lunch. He has his feet up. He has a great big lunch here, and there's a tiger that he's caring for. What is happening? What's a fact in this? Is the tiger going to eat him? Is the tiger going to eat his lunch? Is the man not on duty? Simple pictures can bring up a lot of opinion, show you a lot of prior knowledge or lack of prior knowledge. Here's one that makes me think of today's world. This is a husband and wife having breakfast. They're reading the newspaper. They are disagreeing over some politics. The little boy's under the table bawling. He's not getting any attention at all. Who's right? What's happening in these pictures? Simple things. Any calendar you buy with Norman Rockwell. You could use in groups what's happening and what's a fact in that opinion and what's an opinion. This is a one you won't be able to see very well, but I'm just going to hold it up. It's just an x-ray. Go to your local hospital and pick up, they'll give you these free x-rays. What happened? What do you think happened? What happened before this? What happened after that? Is this a fact that this man's going to live, die? Any simple thing that you can find helps you to do fact and opinion. Here's another one. This one's called Caps for Sale. Simple little child's book. This one's written in Spanish. What is the fact? The fact is the man has all these caps on his head. He's walking through the forest. He falls asleep under the tree, wakes up, and the caps are gone. Is it a fact? Where are they gone? Where could they be gone? Help you think about it. Well, he lost them in the water. Well, somebody took them. Well, somebody did take them. When he looks up, of course, in the tree, the monkeys have all his hats, his caps. Now we've got to think this through. Is it a fact that he doesn't have them? Yes. Is it a fact he needs them? Yes. What can he do about it? Well, he tries different things, doesn't he? He could try yelling at them. He could try walking away. He could try not caring. If you remember the story, of course, he tries everything and he cannot give them, they will not give them back to him until he gets so mad that he, I don't know what we came up with. Don't know what we came up with now. I'll have to figure that out. He came up and he decided he throws something down on the ground. And what do the monkeys do? They throw all the monkeys, the hats down, and off he goes. So a thinking skill, a very simple book, but can lead to so much thinking skills. Anybody else out there use thinking skills a lot? Tell me what you use. Nobody wants to speak up for a minute? Did I lose you? I hope not. Okay, that's good. Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
I've never used any of that, but I really like it for my students when we start writing an argumentative essay, because sometimes, or even informational, just kind of helping students realize that there is a difference between fact and opinion, because sometimes they think an opinion is fact, and sometimes they think a fact is an opinion. They don't know, distinguish the difference between them. So I really like that, and I think I'm going to try and find a way to modify it for a little bit older group, and see if that would help them kind of start thinking that way.
We told the parents one time that at Christmas time, we were going to teach some thinking skills to the little kindergarten kids. Oh, they can't do that. They can't think about it. Well, at that time, a toy came out called Transformers. It was just little, but you could open it and bend it, and it was supposed to turn into this little car or this little circle, whatever you had, would turn into a great, big, beautiful transformer. Well, every child believed that. Every child in our class wanted a transformer for Christmas. We talked to the local toy store and said, well, can we bring over the first grades and the kindergartens and let them see Transformers? They said, yes, you could. So we walked down the street and everybody was given a small little transformer. They were probably 2 inches tall, 2 by 3 little box. And all the children tried to make them big, 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 like the pictures had showed them on TV. And of course, they did not turn into be great big. And all of a sudden they realized, oh, I was told in a fact, it really was an opinion. And I don't know if I want this anymore. And the store wasn't happy because nobody bought them. But they learned a lot. They learned a lot to look at ads carefully, to listen to people carefully. Simple things. On the bottom of the agenda tonight, there's that, it's right here. I put it in for you. Is that a fact? It runs sideways when the first part is, but you can read it because that's how it is in the book. But it tells you how to do something like that, gives you all the directions and what thinking skills that you're using, what taxonomy level you'll be using. If you teach is that a fact? It tells you some dialogue and how to do that. So if you don't know how. And then after you finish with that one, the next one right below it is prove it. A strategy that you can use to prove what you just said. Is that a fact or an opinion? Well, then prove it to me. So let me go clear down to the bottom again. The last one on the agenda says thinking, prove it. And it gives you a skill of, and next week I've got 2 or 3 we're going to try for you. We're going to do one called Zuli and see how you can think about it. So here's all the critical thinking skills. Analyzing, what's the objective, what's the prerequisites. So I put those 2 on there for you. Is that a fact? And prove it. Because after we say it is a fact, how do we know it's a fact? Well, it leads to great discussion and ideas of how to prove it. Okay, we need to take a little break now and move around. We've been here an hour, 5:30. So see you in 10 minutes and we'll go back to work. I'm right here. If anybody has any questions, comments, concerns.
Louise, this is Kate. Do you want 3 article critiques uploaded to that or just one?
Just one. I only said 3, so you would just grab the first one. You'd look at a couple and choose the best one.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
You're welcome, Kate. Kate, you there? Kate? Kate? Kate, are you there? Kate?
Yeah, I'm here.
I'll open that up as soon as I get home. If I can't get to it right now because all your pictures are right there. I can't get to number 4, so don't worry about it. I'll open it up when I get home.
Okay.
I tried to go to it, but I can't get to edit because all the pictures are there and I don't know how to get rid of Zoom. And I'm afraid of getting rid of Zoom completely.
You know, you're doing amazingly well. You're only a few weeks into it, and it's looking really good. I just wanted to say I didn't have that worked out.
Okay, 5 more minutes on your break. You need to move around and get air and drinks. Speak up if you want more of a break, please. I don't want to waste your time because I know you have things to do. Okay, the word wall, so simple, but yet in your literacy rich classroom, how much it can help you, even when you're teaching older students, so simple, but yet so helpful. Also, when we're talking about words and the structured words and learning phonics and so forth, remember to use words that have meaning and expression. These are words for answer words, feeling words, size words, color words, sound words, and taste words. Remember, we have the 5 senses, and they're very much a part of us. So just use words that they know, and then you can feed off of them. But color words, faded, rusty, tangerine, drab, lustrous. These words have feeling and meaning to them. I want to show you some books that you may or may not be interested in, but I'm just going to show you. This is a great book called Teaching and Learning Through Multiple Intelligences. If you really think that's a strong area or one you'd like to know more about, this book is written by Linda Campbell, Bruce Campbell. It's called Teaching and Learning through multiple intelligences. I think we have them because, like you say, maybe I could have been better in musical. I had a piano teacher once, but I didn't have a piano to practice on. So I didn't do too well in piano lessons. And I'm not really musical in singing, though I love to sing and I love music. So I don't know if I could have been steered that way. Why was I steered to be more analytical and organized? I mean, I'm so organized that people laugh their head off when they know all my socks are in the drawer and by color and by the day I wear them and so forth. But anyway, multiple intelligences, it may or may not be a theory you're interested in, but this is a wonderful book about it. Another book I really, really like is called 50 Strategies for Improving Vocabulary, Comprehension, and Fluency. And I've got a lot real good. This is coming from the NEA, National Education Association. So it's not just somebody putting together some strategies, hoping to sell a book and make some money. The NEA has professional library and it's 50 strategies for fluency, comprehension. And I like that one. Another one I found that I really like, and I use this a lot with the older students, are 40 strategies to guide students through informational books. How do they know to find what's important? What's the fact? What's the opinion? Informational books are not as fun as fiction books, you might say. But gaining the skills to think critically and to read a wide variety of informational texts is very important from K through 12. So here's some wonderful strategies on informational text. Some very simple ones by Janet Allen. She just put together some of her favorite strategies. I'm sure you probably have books and books and, of those too, but this one's called Teaching Tools for Teaching Content Literacy by Janet Allen. Just a little paperback ring binder thing, but it has some very good ideas because she uses them. And that's why I think it's so important when you put all your strategies on and how we can learn from each other. Another one I really like, it's a great big heavy thick book, but this is just coming into its own right now. It's called Visualizing and Verbalizing. More and more now we're getting into the visual skills and how do we visually represent and how do we view things and how does it help us? It develops concept literacy, the ability to create mental representations and integrate them into your language. Sensory cognitive skills. I think we have skipped that a lot. We just give them a book, expect them to read it, enjoy it, and remember it all. But there are ways to help them to visualize and verbalize. The new one that's coming out now, and this is where Letters is coming from, and a whole bunch of them, is The Science of Reading. Bringing together the cognitive, cultural, and neurological, how the brain works. We have a couple of handouts we're going to look at in a minute about how the brain is organized. I love brain research. I'm on a couple of committees right now working on the newest brain research. But this is called Reading in the Brain, the new science of how we read. It's fascinating. Reading is hard. The brain has to do its part. The eyes have to do their part. They found out if they cannot read accurately, are they going back and forth with their eyes, eye movement? Clear back in 1918, they were looking at eye movement and how important it is, and now how important the brain is. So I really like that one. Another one I bought the other day is called Social Emotional Learning and the Brain, that effective filter. If I feel like I can do it, and I feel like I can be a success and someone's going to help me, I'm much more apt to try. It gives them a strong relationship that they belong. They have empathy in your classroom, some impulse control and stress management and positive skills, how to guide students in making responsible decisions. So important right now. The world's kind of in chaos. Social, emotional learning, that effective filter. Another one that's very helpful by Douglas Fisher and Nancy Frey. They do a lot and they're on the ILL board and so forth, IRA now. That's 50 strategies, just routines on content literacy, just simple little strategies like you've been looking up for and writing on the post. This one's just hot off the press. Visualization skills for reading comprehension. 6-minute thinking skills. 6-minute thinking skills. Welcome to the 6-minute thinking skills. The workbook provides step-by-step to quickly build the ability to visualize information while you're reading. The ability to visualize as you read is the key for school and learning success. There's no prepping allowed in this one, just 6-minute thinking skills. Another one I really like is called literacy theory as practice. We build on theory, and of course, you know, in the other classes, and some of you haven't had the other classes yet, and some of you are finished, we've had to look at reading theory and models and how it builds and how the theory has changed over the years. But this one goes into how you put it into practice, not just theory we read about, but how we put them into practice. And the last one I think is just fascinating. I really like this. It says, every teacher of young children, as well as those who train them, should read this book. Mark Spiderberg, Language at the Speed of Sight. What does the brain really do? What does that brain really do? How we read, why so many can't read, and what to do about it. Understanding the science of reading is more important than ever for us and for our children, looking at the cognitive neuroscience behind reading. So those are just some ideas that I happened to pick up. Okay, let's see what we're doing now. Let's go to our agenda, please. Let me find our agenda right here. And go to class 5, our agenda. All right, we've already looked at explaining phonics, joy in reading, 20 literacy strategies, the principles of middle school, the brainwave. We've looked at Kagan strategies. We've looked at merging the middle level brain, the 4 principles. We've been through a lot of those. Now, what's the difference between implicit and explicit teaching? Take a minute and think about that. What do you know about the difference between implicit and explicit thinking? Take 2 or 3 minutes now and think about it. Draw yourself a picture, write yourself a chart, something. What do you know about implicit and explicit? Take a minute and think about it. About implicit and explicit. It says my internet connection is unstable. Can you hear me? Speak up if you can hear me, please. Did I lose you? Have I lost you? I can't tell.
Not hearing her anymore either.
There.
Oh, yay, she's
Oh, there she is.
I have wind just really howling here, and it said my internet connection was unstable. So I've been waiting for it to show back up. So it wasn't me this time, it was the wind, I think. Okay, are we back together, everyone? Okay. Then let's. Are we together? Everybody, can you hear me now, Lauren? Lauren, can you hear me? Can you hear
We
me?
can hear you.
Okay, can you see?
We
the-
can't see your screen anymore. No, the screen's gone. Your
Okay.
screen is gone, but we can hear you.
Okay, let me see if I can go to share screen again. Let me see if I can go to share screen and bring it up again. Can you see it now?
There it is.
All right. Okay, we're going to have a review. What's the whirlwind theory? Short, intense, frequent practice. Name the 4 stages of the literacy development. These developmental stages apply to all ages, grades, subject matter, and life. We all go through these stages. What does BENC stand for? Who wants to think about it? BENC. Literacy development. We had it last week. Think about, if you were in a French language class, which one of these stages would you be in? What does the B stand for? Anybody? All right, I'll give you a clue. It's called beginning, the beginning stage.
And then is it novice? Is it that one we talked about?
You've got it, you've got it. Tell me what the ENC stands for.
Experienced,
Emerging.
emerging, and what was the last one?
What was the C?
What was the C?
Conventional.
Conventional, there you go. Beginning, emerging, novice, and conventional. That doesn't mean you're coming into kindergarten. Just imagine if I put you right now in a French language class. I'd be in the beginning stage or even lower than that. What about a theoretical physics class? How about playing in a pro football championship game? A ballet class. Maybe some of you would be, excuse me, get a drink. Would anybody be at the conventional level in a ballet class? Any ballerinas? How about a cattle branding? There I am, I'm conventional. My point is, this is a great praxis question. When you take the practice, you will have 4 questions that you need to write on. This is a perfect praxis question. Name and explain characteristics of the 4 stages of literacy development. Think about it for a minute. Could you write something about beginning, emergency, novice, and conventional? It doesn't mean kindergarten. It doesn't mean just learning to read. It means in anything in the world. We start out beginning, then we're emerging, novice, and conventional. So be thinking about those. Now, the next part, last week we looked at our literacy-rich class. How many of you went back and looked around your room and were you happy, not happy, made changes, what? Speak up, somebody. What did you find in your class? No takers? You're being embarrassed? Think about what you saw in your class last week. Here is a retrospect tonight. We're going to think about just you. You are the important element. You are the expert right now. The National Early Literacy Panel says that we now know a great deal about how children need to learn to read to be conventional. That could be in kindergarten. I've had a little boy in kindergarten that could take the teacher's manual, the worksheets that you do in a book for kindergarten, turn it sideways and read the teacher directions in kindergarten. So he was conventional in kindergarten. But you could have a 12th grader and give him a American history book or a physics book, and he could be a beginning leader or a beginning learner. The hallmark for conventional reading is we have to know focus and meaning. So that's why I gave you that handout just a minute ago. about using words with meaning and feelings. Here is a list of what literacy teachers do. These are activities in an exemplary classroom. Please take a minute and look down through these and say, how many do I do? No matter what age I'm teaching, no matter what class, no matter what subject. Any questions what we're going to do for a minute? We're going to look down through that list and identify things I do, don't do, or wish I did. Okay, take 3 or 4 minutes, go down that list and check it off. Yes, I do this. I wish I did this more. This applies whether you're a mother, a teacher, at any age, any class. Couple more minutes. Are you feeling good about yourself that you've done most of these or tried some? Anybody want to make a comment on any of them? All of them are research proven. All of them are effective. I don't know if we could do all of them. I'm not expecting you to do all of them. I'm just making you aware that all of these are research proven activities to help children at all ages, even if you're older. At the bottom of that article, it says, research has shown that the most effective teachers are those who provide explicit, direct instruction in phonetic generalizations during the whole and small group, focus lessons, and teach children how to apply those generalizations during their reading and writing of continuous, authentic, and functional texts through strategy instruction. A lot of experts have been writing on that. You can see all their names there if you ever want to know more about them. There's a success of teaching. If you go to Canvas number 2 or Canvas number 3 and 3+, it tells you the difference between implicit and explicit. Let's take a minute and make sure that we understand that. Let's go to number 2 and number 3 of implicit and explicit. Here's one for ELLs, because they definitely need both of these, implicit and explicit. When you have time, you'll read about Stephen Krashen. He is a very, very, very well-educated man. He is still alive and influencing us. He's written many, many, many books. He has some definite opinions, why we do bilingual ed and why it's all wrong. I mean, he gives you his opinion. I told you he came to the Salt Lake Airport about 5 years ago, and for a half-hour lecture, he earned $10,000. He is well noted. But he's telling you how to help the ELL children in your class, which helps everyone. There's not anything special just to help this child or that child. These ideas of his, Stephen Krashen, are great ideas. When you have time, look through them. And he also refutes himself. He doesn't believe he's the total expert out there. He believes that what he learns is fine, but there's other people that do things too. Here are some explicit strategies and implicit strategies. And this goes along with our multiple intelligences and our thinking skills. Implicit, they learn by doing without overt instruction. Explicit means they follow them exactly. Now, these little students are usually in grades 1 through 3 do explicit. They do what they're told. But by 4th, 5th, and 6th, and all the way up, they learn by doing more. And even little ones need to learn by doing. And we need to learn by doing. You will learn more about your strategies if you go back to your classroom and try them tomorrow and then write on, messed up that one, didn't work, but you learned something. You learned it didn't work. So there are a couple of handouts. There are a couple of things explaining implicit and explicit. And then it tells you if you had a partner, list those activities. And that would have been really helpful for us to list everything you do that's implicit and explicit. What does that say about your teaching? So think about, do you teach mostly implicitly or explicitly? We need both in the classroom, don't we? And for a long time, remember, we went with whole language, and that was more learned by doing. And then we went back to implicit now. We talk about phonics a lot now. So the pendulum swings back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Any comments or questions? But we do need to know the difference between implicit and explicit. Okay, then after that little self-respect of yourself, look at the next thing. This is Donald Graves. He's another expert out there that's influencing what we do. It says for you to take a look at 5 minutes of your last teaching day. Think about today. Did you do any of these things? Ask yourself, number one, how significant was each item that I did today to a particular child's long-term learning? What did I do today that was very significant? Which of those items contributed the most significantly, and how can I increase that activity? How much time had interruptions and off task? And what did I do to summarize or cement the learning, that whirlwind? What did I do on short, intense, frequent practice? The most important element in a literacy-rich classroom is a literate-rich teacher. What literacies will your student need for life? Children entering kindergarten this year, 2021, will graduate in 2038 or 39. Will they be ready for college, workplace, and life? So think about what you did today. Every day, think about those 4 things. Did I waste time? Was I right on? Okay, using the 7 P strategies, which we learned back in class 1, look at your students in class tomorrow. Run this copy off when you get home and look at your students tomorrow and ask yourself these 6 questions. I'm not going to read them to you. You can read as well as I can, or even more probably. Look at those 6 questions and look at your students tomorrow. Did I do all 6 of these, or at least one? It's wonderful to have strategies, but we don't want to use strategies just to fill up the time or have fun. We want to be effective, literate, rich teachers. And then, of course, we want to always look at the research. When you have time for the homework this week, because you don't have much to do for next week, it's our last class, here are some principles that should be embedded in your literate plans for the future. These are all research-based. So take time to look at them. They're proven. There's 7 of them. Consider how you will use your limited time with the students to provide them with the best teaching and learning that will meet the needs of the next century individuals. So while you look those over, let's take a little 10-minute break. And then when we come back, we will start the article reports. It's never too late to help children. Look over these little ideas, all research-based. And when we come back, we will have article reports by Kate, Suzanne, Marie, and Stacy. Take a 10-minute break and look over all these ideas. Self-respect. Think about introspecting yourself. Great research-based ideas. See you in 10 minutes.
Louise?
Yes,
Oh, this is Suzanne Sheridan. I just had two questions.
Okay.
One is, I think there's a few of us that need to take the first two classes. So I was wondering if you have any insight on that.
Yes, this fall.
And then,
we want to start another group this fall.
okay. Do you know if there's anybody that'll do it over the summer?
No, I know they
Okay.
will not do it over the summer because in the summer, I'm going to tell you about it. We're going to offer the level 2 reading classes. We only offer those every 2 years. And I know I just was asked the other day if I'd like to do them or not. And so, but then there's one more class to finish up. Chris Labram will do the class after this one. That finishes up the people that started these 7 classes. And then in the fall, they will start over again. So if you're missing,
Okay.
they'll start over in the fall. But this summer, we didn't do it last summer. We did 2 summers ago, the 3 research classes for the level 2.
So if you did not finish all the classes, you can't start that level 2.
Yes, if you yes, you can. Yes, if you're in the classes, you can take them. Yes.
You can start your level 2
Yeah.
even if you haven't finished.
Yeah.
Oh,
You
okay.
just can't apply for it until you have finished your level 1. But yes, you can start the classes because we only do it every 2 years. We only have probably 10 to 15 people. It used to be required. It used to be required you had level 2 to be an interventionist or to be a coach or whatever they call them, instructional coaches. But they don't anymore now because they didn't have enough people to hire. So we only offer them every 2 years, and about 10, 15 people take them in the summers. And they go, there's one class in the summer and like 2 days. We go 2 solid days. And then I'll tell you about that in a minute. Well, I'm going to tell you next class. I've got it all written down for next class. There are 3 classes. It goes clear to December, but you do research in your class. You don't meet. We don't meet like this. We only meet a couple of times while you do the research in your class on some problem you have, some issue.
Perfect. Okay, that was perfect. Those were my 2 questions. Was the level 2 and then the first 2 classes.
You could be putting that on the website real soon.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Louise, I have a question.
Righty?
This is Maria. I'm presenting next week on my article, but I can't find an article that I'm interested in. I just recently purchased a book by Kelly Gallagher called In the Best Interest of the Students. Can I read a chapter from that and do my assignment?
You only have 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be reading the whole chapter, just telling us the highlights. I've never read that book. So I'd love to hear it.
Awesome. Thank you.
About 3 more minutes on your break. Does anybody want a longer break? We're okay. I really want you to take time and read all the things on the agenda this week, please, because it's research-based and proven practices, things you're already doing. I hope when you get through reading some of these ideas, you'll say, I do those things. I try that one, or I have tried that one, or I will try that one better. Some barriers for lifelong learners, things that we need to know in our teaching profession. You probably had that when you came out of college, when you were training in college, you heard these things. But we all need a reminder that this is what a literate, rich teacher does, and this is how we help students. There's some purple writing there, and it says, in accordance with the andragogy theory, which means if it's of use to you, if it has sense and meaning, you read it. If it doesn't, there's no need of it. I posted lots of supplemental handouts every week that I hope someday will be of use to you. Okay, let's start with Kate, please, and have her article report.
I was kind of interested. I talked about, I wanted to look at reading success. And so it was interesting to me to see that the National Council on Teacher Quality had posted a new piece that looks like 4 pillars to reading success. And I spend a lot, I'm like old, so I spend a lot of time and have spent some time at the state level reviewing reading programs and recommending things for districts. And so I thought it was kind of interesting that this was a new update on the National Reading Panel, which was, gets reviewed over and over. And I thought that their premise was excellent. So one of the first things that they recommend is that we fix teacher prep programs and we build teacher candidate knowledge. And they had a list of things that every elementary teacher should know about reading instruction. And I was thinking how much I wished that I had known some of those things when I started teaching, because I didn't know some stuff that anyway, I did a disservice to some of those kids those first couple of years. And go ahead, Louise.
Oh, you didn't. I know you're a good teacher.
Well, the thing that was true about all of this is that wouldn't it be nice if people who came out of college and are ready to teach got a better foundation in teaching reading? They're going to have to teach reading.
That's what we have all these committees going right now. I'm on 3 committees from the state office. They're trying to do it. Some universities are good to work with us. One that wears red is not. They will do their thing and don't tell me what to do. So we're trying.
Well, and if we can get to the point where teacher candidates don't just barely have one class, I was fortunate because my background is special ed. So in order to teach special education, I had to have 4 reading classes, and one of those classes was a wonderful reading remediation class, and the woman who taught it was brilliant. And the things that she taught in that class have saved my life ever since. Because I needed that information. But I thought it was really good that they said in pre-service instruction, teachers should understand foundational skills of literacy that produce the highest yield. That we were going to go back to not getting a textbook that the publisher wrote said uses research-based principles, but that we were going to pick high yield research-based principles. About everything's been researched, but there's some things that just work better than other things. And I thought it was really good that they laid those out. So I really thought that was particularly good. Then I thought that it was pretty good that it went on to talk about what states could do for teacher educators who teach reading and how to help teachers who are already out there that haven't had that kind of pre-service instruction get those skills. Then there's a list. I love this list. Tests that do not do a good job of measuring teacher knowledge of reading instruction. And there's a list on there. Among them, the Praxis Elementary Education Content Knowledge Test. So there's a list of things they thought really were bad. there's also a list of things they thought worked, but to actually name the ones that were bad, I thought would be great information to states. If people quit paying for those, a lot of those things that don't work well will disappear. And then it went on and it has recommended assessments for districts and schools. And then it went on to talk about a really good comprehensive way to evaluate instructional materials to see what they had and what was missing. You know, our little district just has teachers come and do their very best. But when I got to the state level, they had a little checklist, but not enough time to evaluate the materials effectively. So the state picks materials that districts can and can't buy here. And people come and evaluate those. And I did that. And even when I got done doing that, I didn't do a very good job of that because there wasn't enough time to evaluate them, even though the way to evaluate them was very comprehensive.
Yeah, I've been committees too, Kate, and they don't give you enough time. They give you all this stuff. Yeah, you have 1 more minute.
Oh, sorry. And then the last piece of that Pillar 4 was to give resources to districts that allow them to provide external supports to classroom teachers in reading. Anyway, the people who wrote this were our famous, wonderful reading specialists, Claude Goldenberg, Deborah Glasser, Edward Kamanui, Kelly Butler, Linda Diamond, Louisa Motes. I thought that the materials here, and most of us at some point, if we're doing a reading endorsement, are going to serve on those committees. We're going to be those people that have to give our opinion and make those choices all over the state. So picking something that was an improvement and new to the National Reading Panel discussion looked real interesting to me, and I thought would be good for all of us.
Thank you. Thank you. What she's talking about is the National Reading Panel. Be sure and check it in, because if you take the reading classes this summer, we have to go over the National Reading Panel, and because they influence us, they have power over us. So read the National and also read the ILA called, let me take the clip off of it, The Case for Children's Right to Read from the ILA. These are the newest policies out there. Thank you. All right, next is, let me see who's next. Suzanne. I'll start the timer.
Okay. Mine might not be 5 minutes, but I chose an article on identifying English language learners with reading disabilities, and it's called Recognizing English Language Learners with Reading Disabilities, Minimizing Bias, Accurate Identification, and Timely Intervention. So because I teach at a Title I school with 50% ELL, a lot of students struggle with reading, and our district tends to swing the pendulum. When I first started 4 years ago, we had under-identified, and now it's starting to go back, but it's always a really tricky line to walk. It's really easy for people to say, we're not going to go put them through testing because of their ELL status or because they're English language learners. So this article, it's nothing new, but basically she states day-to-day language proficiency, they can learn in 1 to 2 years in an English environment. But obviously the academic needs 5 to 7. And when you're thinking about reading, it's really important to look at two levels, the word level and the comprehension. And both are equally important to English language learners, obviously. ELLs who begin their schooling in English environment tend to follow the trajectory similar to monolinguals regarding word level. And if they don't, then there usually is an issue. So if you're looking at phonological awareness, letter sound recognition, ability to read fluently and spell accurately, they're going to be, the disabilities will look similar in an ELL or a monolingual, which I thought was interesting. So you can't really say, well, they're learning the language. the word level reading should be similar. Especially in a school that teaches the explicit PA. Let's see. It's important to be aware that the reading disabilities, that the word level reading difficulties can happen in either language. So often you want to assess in both language, and you can do a PA assessment in both Spanish and English if that's the language that you're working with. Let's see. There is a history of over-identifying and under-identifying. Well-intentioned educators may delay referring students to for special ed support because they're unaware of the students' difficulties and believe that it's really just due to learning English. Grades 4, 5, and 6 in a study showed that their comprehension was lower than monolingual students, simply because they were struggling with the word level decoding. And when you get to the grade levels 4, 5, and 6, it really took a hit on their comprehension. Let's see. ELLs with language problems don't demonstrate little vocabulary, and they don't necessarily make progress over time, even in their native language. The RTI MTSS model is successful in identifying ELLs who struggle, and intervention for struggling ELLs should be comprehensive, systematic, explicit, and timely. So I think that's a big one for us. Okay, perfect. And I'll just read a quick, the difference between, and I put this in Canvas, typical developing and ones who have disabilities. One who potentially has a disability is going to have difficult reading in either language, and they'll have difficulties with oral comprehension. They will not make the same progress as other students, even with the same linguistic backgrounds. They may show better comprehension orally. Let's see. They do not show increased understanding of written text or general language knowledge, have difficulties in all language spoken, and have a history of academic difficulties prior to immigration, and may have a family history.
Good article. It's something we need to address in every school. There are laws, there are standards, there are support systems that are supposed to be there. Thank you. That's a really good article. Very good article. Beth, would you like to be next?
Sure.
Right, you're on.
All right. So my article. Well, so I read a lot of different things, but the one that I decided to talk about was called Teaching Self-Determination to Early Elementary Students, 6-year-olds at the Wheel. And it was just really fun. It was I think some graduate students that were doing some work in a first grade classroom, which appealed to me since that's what I teach. And they decided to teach thinking skills like they were teaching the kids to drive. So they have this whole model worked up where they have the kids' desks be like the windshield, and they have the visor where they write their goals, and they have the steering wheel where they put the work that they're working on currently. And I think my favorite part about it, the part that I really want to implement, is their strengths and weaknesses paper that they did at the beginning and then added to and worked on throughout the length of the experiment. So they said their strengths were the open roads, where it's clear and it's all good, and the weaknesses are like roadblocks, the things that stick you up. I mean, they just, cause you problems. Anyway, and their examples were kind of fun. So one of the kids wrote, I can easily jump rope, I can easily color, I can easily run, I can easily sneak. I loved this because it just sounded like a first grader. And then their weaknesses, it is difficult to sit quietly on the rug. It is difficult to remember to raise my hand. And I thought, I could do that with my kiddos. And then they did what they called demystification anyway. But basically, they compared the mind to a car. When you start your car, you have to know where you want to go. Well, when you use your mind, you need to have a goal. So they just compared a lot of things with the mind to driving a car, and the first graders loved it. And I thought, oh, that would be so much fun. And it had really good results with growth and things, but I think mostly it had to do with how excited the kids were about setting their goals and reaching them and things. So I don't know. I don't know that I want to do all of that with, because it is pretty intensive setup, but there are pieces of it that definitely intrigued me.
As good pieces, yes, as active participation and motivation and real world experiences. Yeah, let us know how it comes out.
Okay.
Over. Thank you. Shanda, would you like to be next? No, Stacy.
Yes.
Stacy, excuse me, Stacy. Marie or Stacy, one of you?
I'm here. Marie's ready.
Yeah, I'm here too. I'm just trying to, go ahead if you're ready.
Okay, go ahead, Marie, if you're ready. Go ahead.
Okay, I read an article that I found kind of interesting because it was comprehension, but it's collaborative comprehension and collaborative approach to diving deeper into like a text. But what they said basically is that it works for classes. It's being used currently in a school in, I don't know where. In the Bronx. And it's for classes grades K to 5. And they spend 15 to 20 minutes every day deconstructing an above level text, which is up to 150 words. So each grade level uses the same text, but it's spread out between like a 5 to 6 week period because they break it up into different phases. So the article kind of said that it's like a marriage between shared reading and closed reading, which I found interesting because I've been interested in closed reading, but not sure if I could do it with my first graders or want to tackle it. But then shared reading is possible. So it just, you choose a text that's collaborative. It could be either a fiction or an informational text. And then you collaborate, like you read it together and you find and create a list of vocabulary words. The one interesting thing about the article was that they suggest having a student facilitator. So somebody in the class or in each group that is able to read the texts more fluently. And then that person will take it home, kind of look it over, and then they report back. So they're listening and learning from their peers. Step 2 is then they deconstruct it by skimming it and putting question marks next to words they don't understand, which I thought was interesting. We don't always have them maybe mark up the text, but this is, instead of reading it and just trying to read it and then push it aside, they read it first, then they go back and the next day and they go back and mark it and try and get the gist of the text. The teacher is modeling the fluent reading in front of the class, but they also can work in small groups. And then the next step, which would be the next day or the next phase, would be annotating it. So having the kids go through and highlight the details that support the main idea. And then the next phase is identifying key details and then analyzing the author's craft, is what it says, and summarizing and drawing conclusions. But each phase that you work on in a small chunk. So it's only a 15 to 20 minute time block. It can be whole group or small group, but then that same text is being used across an extended period of time, which I think would be helpful for students to understand what they're looking for and how to find it within a text, and then they could do it again. They are saying that they have used it for different subjects also, and to try and blend the different, math with science and science with literacy. But yeah, thought it was kind of interesting that you could do it with any grade level.
I think so. That'd be wonderful. Every one of those is research proven. That'd be good for every single level, whether it's a high school or elementary. Good article. You posted that so we can find that. I want to read that one. That's a good one.
Yeah, I did post it. I found it on Edutopia, but I did post it just because it did seem interesting. Because if you do have the time, each phase does have a lot more detail than I went into, but each phase offers something that the kids are learning.
Wonderful. Miss Stacy, would you like to be next?
Okay, I think I got everything working now. All right, so when you hear my article, you're gonna know the soapbox that I'm on, and if you've read my discussion. But it was really interesting to me, and the whole reason I'm doing this class is to help my students, and this is the problem that I'm seeing. So anyway, just a little background why I chose this. Our morning classes, both mine and Amber's, the teacher that teaches with me, are really, really struggling. I mean, we have done everything we can with their phonemic awareness and everything to help these kids learn. And I had an aha moment a couple of weeks ago. We were playing a game, and it was just a little movement game I did before it was time to put their hand on their heart to say the pledge. And none of them, these kids that were really struggling, could cross their midline. They couldn't do this. They couldn't do this. I said, okay, take this hand and touch your ear. And they couldn't do it. And I'm like, wait a second. I remember reading something about that. So I did research and I found the article in why kids that have trouble crossing their midline have a hard time learning to read and write and do academics. So it was really interesting. And it kind of said what I was thinking is, this kids should be all prepared and be able to, they're smart. It's not that they're not smart, but why can't they meet their potential? And sure enough, by not having those parts of their brains activated, it's setting them up for failure in the classroom. It said, even 10 years ago, and I saw this because I taught and then I had a baby and I came back, and the expectations were so different. We're pushing these kids, read, do this, dibbles, do this, push, 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 push. And we're doing all these things to help the kids get there. But now we're seeing all sorts of processing disorders, ADHD, autism, dyslexia, and all these things. And a lot of it can be tied to immature motor skills, which directly relates to educational achievement. And this article says, for example, you hear parents say that their child struggles copying information from a chalkboard, or they can barely do a sit-up, or they collapse when they lie on their back, or ask them to lift their head up and look at their toes. They can't do it. Another problem, kid often struggles with attention and focus in the classroom. They are clumsy, they're running into walls or furniture, and they fidget in their chair. They lean over their desk. They can't process what the teachers are saying because they can't, and they are so distracted in the classroom. When we see these issues, we know the child isn't getting the movement they need to help improve their inner ear and core muscles. To perform well in education environment, kids need to strengthen their motor skills and core muscles to manipulate writing instruments, control their eye movement, and track their words on a page, and calm their bodies so they can pay attention and focus to what the instruction the teacher is giving. And I watch it on my rug. They can't sit. They don't have the core muscles to sit and pay attention to what we're doing. And it's from sitting, watching video games, not playing outside, not getting the rolling, the spinning activities that they need to activate those parts of their brain that help them focus and learn to read. They are at risk of underachieving at school, not because they aren't bright, but because they don't have the physical skill and core muscles to support their intelligence in the classroom. And also you think, when you write, what way do you go? When you read, what way do you go? If you can't cross that, you're gonna have dyslexia, I guess, problems with that. So the article goes on and has a lot of activities you can do with the child, and a test you can give the parents. If you see a child that's struggling reading, there's a checklist you can ask the parents to figure out if maybe this is the problem. And that also brought me to a different article, and I'll link them both in, about Finland and the success that they have in their reading, and how they don't start teaching kids till they're 7 years old. And the education up until then is a lot of outside play. They have up to 90 minutes of outside play. They will talk about developing, am I almost done?
1 more minute.
Okay, well, the kindergarten in Finland, they don't prepare a lot academically. They don't have them reach these test scores. They make sure the child are happy, responsible, that they can play, that they can do these large motor skills that they need. And then they watch their development and then decide from there which children are ready to learn to read and which aren't. Because I do have kids that do have those skills and are ready to read, but then I have kids that don't have those skills and they aren't. They need to develop those so they can function in the classroom. So that's kind of my soapbox.
I used to say the boys shouldn't start till 8, but they'll catch up by age 9 or 10. And the girls can start at 5 or 6, and then they change their mind and they're looking at intelligences. Very, very relevant, very relevant. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Next week, we have Andrea, Ginger, Nancy, Trish, Cheyenne, Marie G, Carrie, Lauren, and Loren. Thank you, everybody. Those are good articles, good articles. To me, that makes much more sense than giving you a test, having you write a paper, because we've got to share with you. I love that. Okay, we're going to look at some of the handouts now, just briefly. Adolescent learning. Jill, would you find a couple of highlights from it? Number 5, how to question. Tony, would you do a few things? Rowdy isn't here tonight, so we'll see if somebody else will volunteer on that one, on alternatives to round robin reading. Round robin reading is the worst thing you can possibly do. Canvas 7, idea circles, Jennifer Johnson. Directed thinking lesson, Brindy. When older students can't read, Nicole. Attitude toward reading, Rebecca. Comprehending text, Corinne. Why use strategies, Amber. If you would please look and find a couple of highlights. If your name isn't there, then I suggest you go back and look at all these things that we just looked at of what makes a good literacy rich teacher. Any questions what we're going to do for a few minutes now?
Louise, this is Jennifer Johnson. I was wondering if I could do Rowdy's topic instead.
That would be fine. That would be fine.
Okay, great. Thank you.
A few minutes just to find us a couple of highlights so that we can pique people's interest. The rest of us go back and read what makes a literate rich teacher. Once you go home, I know you're too busy to do other things. See you in a few minutes.
Louise, which one? This is Jill. Which one did you ask me to read? Sorry, I can't see it on your.
Jill's reading. Which
okay.
One?
Adolescent learning. Okay, I'll find it. Thank you.
Kate, Ginger, Beth, are you getting a big storm in Duchesne right now?
Well, wind.
Oh, that's what we're getting here, and it looks like it's blowing around out there. Just wondered how bad it was over there.
I just have wind too.
Mhm. I've got something hitting my window here. It looks like rain or sleet. When you're ready, Jill, we'll wait, give you time, but when you're ready, we're listening to Jill talk about adolescent learning.
Okay, I can start. I mean,
Thank
it was 18 pages long, but
Yeah,
I just kind of,
it's a highlight, yeah.
it kind of summarized in the beginning. So I just kind of went off of the first, like the first couple pages. But it talked about the adolescent literacy development that we need to, or that teachers need to provide opportunities for adolescents to work with text that is inclusive of print and non-print materials, offer web-based learning experience, implement multiple assignment methods or assessment methods that demonstrate students' strength as well as needs, expand the focus on disciplinary literacies, increase the number of middle and high school literacy specialists, offer access to relevant sources, and provide appropriate professional development for educators. It also talked about what adolescents deserve. They deserve a culture of literacy in their schools with a systematic and comprehensive program or programmatic, I cannot read, my eyes are so bad, approach to increasing literacy achievement for all. Adolescents deserve access to an instruction with multimodal multiple texts. Adolescents deserve differentiated literacy instruction specific to their individual needs. So I am kindergarten, so I actually have no idea how a high school or junior high teacher, an adolescent or a teacher of adolescents would kind of fill in those gaps. I think at that point, I think it would be really hard. But I know there was a lot more in that article about steps to take or about what to do if they're, behind at this level, but I don't know.
Thank you. Thank you, Jill. That was my point exactly. This class used to be nothing but just early childhood, from birth up to second grade. But we need to be aware, at least to be aware there's an issue and that there's adolescents illiterate and what we can do to help them. And it starts down when it's young, starts at home, and we still have a problem. So all these articles have some little truth in them that maybe will help us. Thank you, Jill. Tony, could you tell us about questioning?
Please stop. I'm gonna have to present in a minute.
Tony, are you there? I can hear a mic being fiddled with, but I can't hear Tony.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there you are. There you are.
Okay, I'll start again. I'll try again. Okay, this one had a bunch of questioning strategies, and there were examples of ways to ask questions for knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. So this was just really short, but I had a bunch of different examples of open-ended questions that we could ask our students. It was really good, and it was quick. Like it already had it already there. It'd be easy to print off and use in the classroom.
Yeah, that's blue technology. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's just simple, following those different steps. Thank you. That's what we needed. Thank you. Jennifer, did you want to do Rowdy's one then about round robin?
Yes, thank you. So it just listed some other options. The first one was echo reading. And that's where the teacher reads a section and then the students read after. and choral reading, where the stories are read by a group of students all at the same time. There's one called Impress Reading, which I wasn't familiar with the name, but I think we do it often, as where the teacher and the students read the passage at the same time. This way they're hearing modeling, and they're just getting practice with like pacing and fluency. Paired reading, I think lots of people, that's pretty common, where students read in pairs and they can go back and forth, whether they go by paragraph. You can also do it where one student reads and another student asks questions about it. I would think that that would take some practice to make sure they do it right. There was another strategy where you put parts of a story on index cards, and the students each read their index card. That would kind of be a fun way to do it. And then they had one called Perfect Reading Days, where the students read silently and then they read certain sections together as a group, and the teacher just goes around and listens to the group, so it gives them more practice reading the same thing. And then four corner reading, I think that one's kind of popular. I've heard of that before, where they're reading as a choral group, like they're, separated in the room, and there's a leader, and so they're just all reading at the same time in their corner.
Thank you. And round robin has proven very ineffective, because it's not your turn. You're not listening, participating, or involved in any way. Okay, Brindy, what's a directed thinking lesson?
Okay, so I liked this one. It was interesting. I liked how it talked about when the student does predict, read, and then prove. So the student's predicting what will happen, reading it, and then proving it. I was reading through it, and I really liked this part, the SQ3R. And I'd never heard of that before. It's survey, question, read, recite, review. And this is just how you kind of teach them to read and teach them how to really comprehend what they're reading, and then to reread. And that's what I do a lot with my students. I find that they don't want to reread. They want to read it once and be done. And so we reread the same story throughout the week, and they find different context clues, and I ask them different questions, so they understand that even though the story might be only this long, there's still plenty to learn from that. And it's something that you got to read over and over. I'm hoping that's going to implement in or help them while they're testing, to not just skim through it, but actually read the story and then answer the context clues. What else? There was just a lot of good ideas, like readiness for reading, directed reading, check on understanding, and then skills development. But I really like that SQR3. That's something I think I'll use.
About 6th grade. Nicole, what about when older students read?
Okay. So I unfortunately wasn't able to get through the whole thing, but what I picked up is, let's see, the reading level in 1st grade is a good predictor of the reading achievement in high school. Wow. I found that really interesting. And I think we've kind of touched on it in earlier classes, where what they read early on tends to indicate how they're going to be reading later on. Reading failure begins early, takes root quickly, and affects students for life. That's a direct quote from that. And so something they mentioned, that instruction must be cumulative, sequential, and systematic, so students overcome the bad habit of relying on context and guessing to decode unknown words. And that was kind of talking a little bit about building vocabulary skills. And that's about as far as I got. But I found it really just interesting that it really does begin early on and affects students later. And as a junior high teacher, I sometimes don't realize that. I think, oh, hey, student reading at a 5th grade level. Why are you not reading at an 8th grade level like you're supposed to? Let's try and jump those math is not my subject, 3 grades and get you back to where you need to be, but it's not that simple.
Exactly. Yeah, it has some good points in it. That's a highlight, and if people are interested, Andragogy says they will look at that. Thank you for that. Rebecca, then, how do you measure their attitude toward reading?
So this was pretty interesting to me. There was one little thing in here. It says the student's attitude toward reading is a central factor affecting reading performance. You know, that's so true. Anyway, the article goes on to, it's like a research. So they were trying to find like an instrument that could help teachers estimate the attitude levels of readers and see. So they went on and they built a survey, and it was really cute. They used Garfield instead of smiley faces or frowny faces. It was like a happy Garfield or a sad Garfield. And they went on to do, they tested 2 different things. So it was their attitude toward recreational reading and attitude toward academic reading. And it talked about how sometimes their recreational score is higher than their academic score. Sometimes their academic score is higher than their recreational score, and things that you could do to help those students where their scores differ. So yeah, it was pretty fun.
Things we can do to help them, and attitude plays a big point. I don't like reading. What don't you like about it? I don't know. I don't like reading. They don't know. They don't like it. Yeah, makes a big difference. Corinne, how do you comprehend text or ideas for text?
The article talks about how to guide students into text and through text and beyond text, which I thought was a nice way to divide it up. The way to get them, the ways, and it just lists strategies how to do each of those. So ways to comprehend textbooks, or I'm sorry, ways to get kids into their text is with anticipatory charts or guides. The example they gave in the article was an agree or disagree checklist. And then they suggested a KWL. The KWL can actually do get the kids all the way into, through, and beyond. You can use that for all 3. Graphic organizers can also be used to get into, through, and beyond. There was a cute strategy called pantomime a tale that you would break up the story into paragraphs, and a narrator reads while the rest of the group pantomimes what's happening in the paragraph. I thought that was a cute one. And the suggestions for beyond the reading, this is something that I need to work on, is what happens after they read the text. They said that you can discuss with the students projects that they could do, interviews that they could conduct, presentations, research that they could do to continue the learning that they've done.
Yep, there's some good ideas. Why do we just read it and then forget it? We don't ever go back to them. I've seen that happen so much in history classes. We never go back to the page that we read 10 days ago. Yep. Amber, why should we use strategies? Are they just a waste of time? Why do we use strategies?
Okay, so this article first gave a whole bunch of definitions on what a learning strategy is. And so one of the definitions it listed is that they are specific actions, techniques, thoughts, or behaviors that students often intentionally use during their learning. And then it gave some characteristics of those strategies. They need to be taught and practiced so they can be used automatically. They help the learner become more self-directed in their learning, and they also enhance their learning. They're able to more effectively learn what they need to using learning strategies. There are several kinds of strategies you can use. It listed off a whole bunch of things like using a glossary, looking at headings and maps, and but there's direct learning strategies and indirect learning strategies. Direct learning strategies are like using memory aids, doing stuff with cognitive work, forming and revising models in their mind, and working with comprehension. And then indirect learning strategies work with metacognitive skills, which helps them students exercise control over their thoughts and planning and arranging and focusing their learning. Indirect learning strategies also are affective skills, which help learners control their feelings and motivations and attitudes that relate to learning, and also social learning strategies, which help them facilitate interaction with others, which is a whole other thing students need to learn how to do. I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah, it's got a lot of good ideas there, lots of good ideas in that one. So why use them? Not just for fun, not just take up the time. They have a purpose, remember? What's our purpose? What's our principle? What are we teaching? Why are we doing things? Okay, COP, change your pace. I put in some math strategies for you. I'm not going to take time to read them for you because we want to go on and have the reports, but I will go show you what they are. Let me go to the modulars and go down them so that you're aware of where they're at, because math is important too. All right. Number 12 was why use strategies that she just told us about. Number 13 is that there is a need for a number sense, the roots of their math difficulties. So that might be one that you'd be interested in. The next one is called some resources for teachers. A lot of new books that are out there. You've been asking, a lot of you have been asking me about different books. And so I put that down there so you can, as you teach adolescents, it gives you some ideas. The next one's called Math Strategies. And there's 14 pages of them, and they go along with the multiple intelligences, goes along with individualized, it goes along with Bloom and Kagan, and there's 14 different pages of different math strategies to use there. The next one is another math doctrine, and math is very complicated because it's very domain specific. Its terminology can't be figured out in context. Listen to yourself tomorrow when you teach math. If you put a problem on the board and you put 3 and put a 4 under it and then put a line, then you put this symbol in front that we call a plus. Well, today you say 3 plus 4 is what? Tomorrow you say, put together 3 plus 4. Then you say 3 and 4 make what? And then you say, well, add 3 and 4. Well, you use different terminology. This child that thinks, what today she called it plus. Is it adding? You have to be very specific. It's very good to put a board up and a picture in your board or on your wall. When I make this plus sign, it can mean all these different things. Add, put together, what's the family, what's the sum, what's the number, what's the, all these things that I might say that still means plus or still means subtract. Readers get really mixed up on what terms you're using, because math can be very complicated. There are 4 kinds of math reading. There's mathematical definitions called math uniforms. There are conditional statements called syllogisms. If then, if this happens, then what? There's explanations of right and wrong answers. There's procedures and directions. Math came from Latin and Greek, and it can be very complicated for these students. What does she mean? Today she called it this, tomorrow she called it that. Is it the same thing? So I put those in just to give you an idea that be careful with your math language. Okay, now let's go to our next reports. Let me go back to the agenda and we'll give people a turn so that we can get ready to go home. It's getting to be really blowy here. I'll be glad to get home. So will you. Let's go down and see who's next here to have article reports. I think you're doing a wonderful job with these article reports. Things I've never heard of or things other people would, and giving us a contact place to find these articles. I think they're much more meaningful than giving a test that only I see the answers and you never even see the answers. Okay, so next we're coming with, almost down there to the bottom. Next, we're going to listen to Jenny Jenkins, then Beth, then Shanda, then Julie. Jenny, are you ready? Do you need to have more time, Jenny?
Nope, I'm ready.
Okay, I'll start. Go right ahead.
I read an article that was called Looking for Literacy in All the Right Spaces, the Laundromat. I'm just really interested in ways to work on that homeschool connection and involve families. And so this really looked at, okay, it took place in New York, and these kids, they spent probably 2.5 weeks at the laundromat with their parents. So why not take advantage of that opportunity? They put literacy centers in some, and they kept some as controls. But they thought, okay, let's see if this will help encourage family involvement and promote literacy outside of school. So they figured there was a need because of the communities they were in were really impoverished. So they thought this would be a good opportunity to help these kids. And so they used 6 laundromats. 3 of them were controls they watched. And then 3 of them, they put literacy spaces in. They filled them with books and writing supplies and puppets and things of that nature. And then they just sat back and watched for a couple months to see what would happen. And they noticed that in the laundromats where there wasn't anything provided, there was hardly any like book reading or anything like that. The parents spent the time folding their clothes, doing laundry. The kids sat on phones or, just did things like that. But in the ones that they put the literacy centers in, the kids were self-engaging in those things. They were going in and reading books. They were talking to each other, making friends, playing with the puppets, reenacting stories, and they were involving the parents in it too. They would write something and take it to the parents, and the parents would ask them questions about it. But they noticed that the interactions weren't really sustained. The kids spent about 6.5, 7 minutes engaged in these activities while they were there at a time. And then there's a second part to this that they thought, okay, well, what if we bring librarians in too? Because these kids weren't going to the library. So they brought librarians into the laundromats too. So they were in these literacy centers and would engage with the kids. And they noticed that the kids started spending more time there. They spent probably 47 minutes in the centers engaged in these activities, but they weren't involving the parents anymore. The parents would kind of observe, or they would sit back and just do things to help manage the behavior. So the kids were behaving while the librarians read to them and did finger plays and different literacy type activities with them. So they were just saying what it was really trying to get across is we need to meet families where they're at to get them involved, because these families weren't taking their kids to the library. They needed opportunities like this, and that's one place that they spend a lot of time each week. So we need to kind of think unconventionally about how we reach some of these families. And I thought, same thing with our little communities, where are our families? Why are they not involved? What are they involved with instead? And how can we kind of think outside of the box and involve them in these literacy type things too, to help these, students that wouldn't get it any other way.
Excellent. About 10 years ago, the border of Arizona and Texas decided that What their problem was with the Spanish little children is that they were missing so much school because they were following the crops, following their parents, following the crops. So they got two great big huge Greyhound buses and registered professional teachers and staffed them and followed the children. And the children would have to work part of the day, but part of the day, excuse me, they would attend in these buses. And they had a regular schoolroom and trained teachers and everything. And their test scores were way, way up because they had that consistency, because somebody cared about them. And it wasn't that they didn't like school or couldn't read or weren't smart. They just couldn't come. They had to follow the crops. So yeah, that's a good article. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Next is Beth, please.
Do you want me to go again?
Did you already go?
Yeah, I did earlier.
Oh, yes, thank you. Yes, I meant, oh, thank you so much for keeping me on task. Shanda.
Okay. My article that I chose was, it's called Student Choice is the Key. Go get Daddy to help you. Okay.
Go get Daddy now. Real world.
So, my article is called Student Choice is the Key to Turning Students into Readers. And it's about what some of the things that we've been talking about in class is about giving students choice on their reading and the projects they do with that reading. And the author of this article, her name is Jenny Burley. I might be saying that wrong, but she's a high school literacy specialist at Jefferson County Public Schools in Kentucky. And she tells this story that I really liked about how she wasn't really a reader. She could read, but she just chose not to. She didn't find a lot of enjoyment in it. And her first year of teaching, she had a little girl in her class that just loved to read. And she would suggest books to her teacher and say, you should read this, and this is a really good book, and this is what it's about. And so the teacher, feeling obligated, decided that she would read these books. And she really liked them, to her surprise. And she'd come back to class and she'd talk to the student about it. And she talks about how that student turned her into a reader that loved to read. And so because of that, this has kind of become her life's work and her passion. And trying to turn non-reading students into readers that not just can read, but that love to read and find enjoyment in it. And one of the things that she talks about is finding the International Literacy Association's initiative that's called Children's Right to Read. And it's kind of a list of rights that children have and things that they should have in the classroom. And we're trying to do this at my school, so I was glad that I found this. So a couple of the things that they advocate for is giving students choice in what they are reading, encouraging them to read for pleasure. Let's see. Choosing texts that mirror their experiences and languages or provide windows into the lives of others. Setting aside time in class every day for students to read. Let's see. Oh, having diverse and relevant classroom libraries that surround students with great texts. And it says, finally, we must encourage and support our students by providing safe, literacy-rich environments in which students support one another. So you can actually find this, this children's right to excellent literacy instruction. You can find it on the International Literacy Association's, yes, that's it. You can find that, and they just have this wonderful list. And so she talked about some of the things that her group of teachers that she kind of supervises and helps She's talked about some of the things that they have done to help other teachers. And so in their professional development that they do, some of the books they look at are Kelly Gallagher's Read Aside, Penny Kittle's Book Love, and then their collaborative book, 180 Days. And so they use those as materials to help facilitate those children's rights to literacy. And one of the things I wanted to share from this article, this is how she ends it. She just says, yes, standards are important. Yes, grade level texts are important, but unless students will actually pick up a text and read, none of that matters. The most urgent need to improve literacy demands students to read. And to do that, we must give them access to the education opportunities and resources needed to read. Fortunately, we have a guide for doing just that with the ILA's Children's Rights to Read. So in my article on Canvas where I reviewed that, I put the link to the article, but inside of that article, there is a link to ILA's website as well. And I just think it's an interesting source. It's something that as a faculty, we've been trying to implement more choice, but it's hard. It's hard to kind of give up that control and decide that, you know, we're not just going to read the classics. We're going to give them more choice, but they love it. The choice units that we've done with our students at the high school, they have absolutely loved, and they beg us to give them those opportunities, even the kids that don't love reading. So I think it's something worth looking into and doing some research on for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. That's the one I was showing you, the case for right to read. Let me put a push in here. I know it costs money, but to belong to the International Literary Association, they have wonderful articles. They put out books, magazines. They do the latest research. I got to go back for a couple of times and be on their panels. The case for right to read. But if you go into and maybe join up or have the school join or have your library join the ILA. It used to be the IRA, International Reading Association. It's now called the ILA, International Literacy Association. Well worth your time and your money. The articles they come out with and the suggestions are wonderful. Thank you. Julie, would you like to be next?
Sure. Okay, the article that I chose, or the articles that I chose, we're finishing up mid-year testing, as most of you are in your schools, and I work as a facilitator in our district, and I noticed in ILP meetings as we're talking that one thing that kept reoccurring is they wanted to do better with fluency in the classroom. So I was looking at articles that would help the teachers. And this is one that I chose mainly because of the simplicity of the article. It also just reiterates what we've learned in your class and other classes about some ways that we can help improve fluency. So this was called 5 Surefire Strategies to Develop Reading Fluency. It's by Lisa Blah, and the link I put on Canvas for this article as well as the other ones. So the first thing they said is to model fluent reading. So students have to hear what fluent reading sounds like. And the most powerful way for students is for you to read to them often. And one thing that I think is getting forgotten a lot, this is just my own opinion, is just not forgotten, but maybe eliminated through the time crunch, is read alouds, having teachers read to their students, and so that they have a good model, so they can tell what a good reader sounds like. Ask the students as you're reading what keeps them engaged. Ask comprehension questions, just kind of direct the reading, close reading. Second is do repeated readings in class to practice that fluency. And this is really a simple task. We've talked about it, but it strengthens how the ease that students can read. Have students practice reading short passages aloud is the best way. It's also can be done with an echo reading in which you read a line and all the students repeat the line back to you. Choral reading is another good method. The third thing they said is promote phrased reading in class. Fluency that involves reading phrases instead of word by word is preferred for fluency. And this is also a good strategy to do in writing. Write in phrases like poems or in sentence strips instead of word for word. Fourth, they said to enlist tutors to help out, instructional aides, and maybe after COVID, we can have our parents come back in, our grandparents, our volunteers, older students, etc. can read. Fifth, it says try reader's theater. Bring those back into the class because a reader's theater is a good way to have an oral performance of a script. It's one of the best ways to promote fluency. Even though it's been around for years and years, it's a great way to incorporate expression and intonation. And it's really a great exercise in tracking, having students keep track of where they're at. And that's it. There were a lot of great things on fluency. I just wanted to simplify it, give teachers maybe 5 things that they could try, and then we'll readdress it later.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. A lady, a principal in one of the Park City schools last year, or 2 years ago when we did the level 2, that's what she did. She said that my teachers feel overwhelmed. There's so many wonderful books and ideas. She chose 10 that she thought was important, worked on 5 up to Christmas and 5 after Christmas. By the end of the year, she felt so wonderful that they were trying these different things and ready to branch out a little, but they felt good in something. They weren't just sloppily trying one and not really working through it and seeing some issues with every one of the strategies. It was a great research project, helped their reading skills. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Hey, the wind is really howling here and I'm in a little blizzard and it's 7:22, I guess. Let me show you the articles I posted left and then we'll get ready to go home if that's all right with you. Let me show you a few of the things I put on that may or may not be of interest. Andrew Goji says if it is, you'll look at them. Okay. I put on one called Parent Helps for Reading, and to give you some ideas. The next one is called the Organization of the Brain and Working Memory. I must have liked it really well because I put it on twice. So, but our working memory, in one of our classes, we will study the brain and how do you move it from the table where you just put something on the table into working memory where you actually use it and into storage where you keep it and use it. There's some good ideas there. I put on one called Comprehension Strategies Thinking. I put on one about wait time. I'm working very, very hard with my demonstration teachers right now. They want to cover it so fast and get over it that they don't let them discover it. They just simply cover material and it does not go into long-term storage at all. There's one here called the Pendulum of Teaching Reading. There's one called Comprehension Instruction. And then I put on one called Listening. It's very short, but how often do we teach listening? We assume, we expect, but do we teach listening? There is a handout here. Try this at home or try this with your students. Sit back to back. One of you has a design or a story or just anything you want them to listen to. Make it short, make it meaningful. Try and tell the person who's sitting at your back how to draw this figure. You could do any figure, you could do any little story, you could do a poem, but we have to actually teach listening skills. We have to teach volume. We have to teach how to project. We have to teach listening skills. And so that's just an idea for you that needs to be done because they don't know how to listen. They haven't been trained in listening. Mostly they just get screamed at or ignored. And And then there's one on speaking. Do we teach speaking skills? And it's another very short one, but speaking is the act of making vocal sounds. And can we help them with that? So I hope that some of these will be of use to you. There's one more I want to show you before we leave. Let me go to the very end of it, down to the bottom. I put on, oh, there's one called reading strategies too. I've tried to put as many as I can, hoping that one of them will pick your interest. And then I put on the chapter 7 VIPs. If we were using the book, we would be up to chapter 7 by now. And there are some cognitive processing perspectives. And it has a lot of good information that literate, rich teachers should know about automatic information processing. Big terms, big educational terms, but you just need to be aware of these. I know this because I help with the praxis, and I know that some of these show up on the praxis. Can you tell about some of these things? So I want you to be aware of those things. Any comments, questions now as we end this evening, so we can all go home, or if we're already home, you can go to bed and rest. Any comments or questions? Next week is our last week. We have the last reports. We'll look at what to do with adult learners. We've gone from birth now, we're almost up to high school, out of high school, and adult learners. I had a very interesting thing happen about 4 years ago. A man came into this learning center I was running, and he said, "Can you teach me to read?" And I said, "How old are you?" "I'm 65. He said, "And I want to apply for Social Security. I can't read. I can't read the paper. I don't know what, I don't understand." That was a real challenge. He had a purpose, and how he made it through life. He knew how to sign checks. He'd make an X. He was a farmer. He raised cattle. He knew a lot about cattle. He was successful. He was a farmer and a father and a grandfather, but he could not learn, did not know how to read. Basic things, like maybe like your first grade level. So we're never too late to learn, and we're never too late to help each other. If there's no more questions, we'll dismiss for the night. Thank you all for your help tonight. I love hearing how you give this reports because it's so meaningful. I will open up. Now, I don't care if you've been late on some of your assignments. I know how life happens. Like Kate just asked me if I could open up number 4 because life happened and she didn't get it done. I will go back and open up things so that if you missed posting something, I want you all to get straight A's. I want you all to finish your assignments because we're not in here for grades. We're in here to learn and help each other. So if you've missed something, it will be opened up as soon as I get home. I can't do it right now because the pictures of all of you are over where I have to go to edit to get to it. And I don't want to mess anything up. I've been so lucky tonight that I didn't mess anything up yet. Good night, everybody, and see you next week.
Thank you, Louise.
Thank you. Drive home safe.
Yep, parenting you too. Be safe, everybody.